Hey, what's going on, everybody? Winner Kills here, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today, I'm excited to bring you guys an updated deck profile and tournament report for my Infernoble Sinful Spoils deck. This past weekend, I went to 2 tournaments. I went to a locals mega tournament where we had 4 rounds of Swiss and top cut, where I ended up getting 2nd place at that. Ended up going 5-2 overall. Only lost once in Swiss, and then again lost in the finals to Good Friend on Rescue Ace, where I managed to learn some pretty valuable things about the matchup. And then the following day, I went to an OTS championship in Rochester, New York, and didn't do so great, but I want to talk about a few things from that tournament that I learned as a result. And I figure they're kind of valuable. And I'll talk about, again, things that I like, things that I didn't like, some conflictions, and this will probably be the last update for this deck, maybe for a little while. I do plan on doing a combo video as well, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to have to put the deck aside to play some other decks to fulfill some donation incentives. Earth Machine, Rika, Mermail, DDD, etc., etc. So be on the lookout for that as time moves on. Now, before we hop into the deck profile itself, I do have a few shoutouts I want to give. One shoutout to my friend Dalen, aka the DB Lurker, who has been an incredibly helpful resource when it has come to learning and playing this deck. I don't think I'd be where I'm at with this deck right now if it weren't for him providing me a spreadsheet, showing me combos, talking theory with me about the deck, giving me pointers, telling me, where I went wrong with certain plays and how to correct mistakes for future games. Has just been absolutely an incredibly important resource, and I cannot thank him enough for all of his time and help while I've been playing this deck. So again, huge shout outs to him, and shout outs to everybody that I've tested with. You know who you are, and also shout outs to Imperium Duelist and TCG Player. Check out the links I have to their sites and all the affiliate links and codes down in the description below. And with all that being said, let's hop into the profile. First and foremost, we have 3 copies of Neo Space Connector, and of course the Aqua Dolphin. Really nothing to say about this. This engine is just absolutely insane, and is even better arguably with the Diabell Star stuff. Then moving on, we have 1 Infernoble Knight Ogier. This is a card alongside many other cards in this deck that are a one-of, and actually the amount of times I hard drew this card kind of was hard to believe that it was actually a one-of, but I think all of these Infernoble Knight monsters work very, very well as one-off monsters, considering how many Rotas are in the deck, how many ways that we can search these cards out. So I think all of these cards being at 1 for the time being, perfectly acceptable, and it also allows us to squeeze in a lot more non-engine in the deck. We also have the Diabell Star engine to kind of thank for that. So 1 Ogier, 1 Turpin, 1 Oliver, they all serve their roles, and you search them out whenever you need them. So all being at 1 is definitely, perfectly fine by me. 1 copy of Magus. This card is MVP. The amount of times that I've used this card in grind game situations to keep recycling resources to make future cards live, like the Snake Eyes stuff, so I can search out Ricky Ardetto after I've already used them and put them back into the deck, or putting back equip spells to make my future museums live, because that definitely can be a problem if you burn through too many equips. Your Noble Arm equips, makes future field spells dead, and that doesn't really help you. You need the field spell a lot of times to really push for games and following turns, and Magus is just pivotal for that. I know some lists don't play him, that's why I figured I'd mention it. And also, just having another name that you can equip to stuff in the graveyard is also very valuable. 1 Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. I would never want to play more than 1 of this card. There are times where hard drawing this card is great, but of course there are also times where hard drawing this card sucks, and I do not want to experience those times more often, so 1 is perfectly fine for me. Now, I am on the 1 Super Quantum Red Layer. I was comfortable with not playing this card for the longest time, but recently I've come under some new information that has kind of led me to believe that playing this card is actually a really good idea. For a couple reasons. First and foremost, SP Little Knight is definitely a meta-defining card this format, and Red Layer is a card that can easily be searched out off of the Durendal, which can then run right over the SP Little Knight, dealing with that problem pretty much indefinitely, right? So there's that, and also the Acid Golem play that the Mechanco deck can pull off. Might not be super prevalent, might not be super popular, but this is an in-engine out to that. We can search it, tribute over the Lava Golem for this, and we also got ourselves a Fire Warrior monster on field, which is very, very helpful for a myriad of reasons. And also, this card coming out at 2,500 under Museum can also beat over Fenrir's, and if you have the Divine Sword equipped to it as well, you can even crash into things like the DDD High Wave King Caesar in the Unchained matchup, which also did come up, funny enough, at the OTS. And yeah, Red Later has just been a great card. Also a good card to be able just to add off a soul as sort of a blank. And then we have more of those one-ofs here. Renault, Ricky Ardetto, and Fire Flint Lady. All cards that I'm perfectly fine with playing at 1. They're all recyclable, all searchable at any given point that you need them. And yeah, wouldn't trade those ratios for anything at the moment. And then we have one Diabellstar the Black Witch for that engine, and one Kashira Riseheart, of course, for the Fenrir's that we were playing as part of the non-engine. That's one of the reasons why I like the Cashier package as I moved it back into the main deck, is it does help us going first, and it does help us going second. And it's also non-engine, all while also being engine, because we can get to Rise Hard at the same time. With it being a level 4 Fire Warrior, we can pair it with Fire Flint, we can pair it with Oliver or Ricky Ardetto, right, to get into Angelica, or just help link into a soul, whatever it may be, and just play our game that way. And there are even some times where you can just special summon this guy while you have a Fenrir on field and not really care about the restriction, because you can set up like Dempsey and Gearfried on field and just play like Beat Down in a situation where you might not otherwise be able to. That has actually come up a few times. You know, locking yourself in Xyz really isn't that big of a deal if you play your cards right. And also the fact that sometimes if you just get him on field and you're going to link him off anyways, you can just use his effect to get rid of a Fenrir from your deck and make your opponent banish the top 3, and maybe they get rid of some crucial one-ofs, which can definitely, you know, matter sometimes in the long run. So yeah, just a good card. Might as well have it in the deck, right? Unfortunately, it is a brick, but most of the time, at least going second, I do end up siding it out because it's not really a card you want to draw. You'd rather be drawing Fenrir going second, not something like Rise Heart. Then we have 3 copies of Museum here as we move into the spells. As continuing on with the engine of the deck here. Yeah, just card is crack. And yeah, this is really not much to say. And then from there we have 3 more copies of Museum. Yeah, just another Rhoda in the deck. Not really much needs to be said about this card. Always play 3. Sometimes you could side out a second one, or side out 1 going second. But I never did. 3 copies of Wanted for the Sinful Spoils engine. I love seeing this card in the opening hand, especially going first. It's incredible. I found myself oftentimes siding this out completely going second. Although if I did have room to spare, I'd always try to leave at least 1 or 2. But this was a go-to card to side out most times going second, just because you don't really need this card in the deck. You'd rather just like, when it comes down to like drawing a side deck card or this, I'm going to choose drawing the side deck card 9 times out of 10. Because yes, this card can help you go into a board, but you know, a hand trapper, floodgate type card is going to be a little bit more valuable when going into a board versus that. Then we have 2 copies of Durendal and 1 copy of Almace. I love this ratio. I think 1 and 2 will be a ratio that I play in this deck for a long time to come, so I definitely don't want to change that. I am not playing Joyous anymore, as I'm sticking with main decking the Angelica's Angelic Ring. Do I miss the Joyous? Sometimes, yes, but not enough just at the moment to warrant putting back in the main deck. Maybe if the format changes where people aren't playing Super Poly, which is a very prevalent card right now. I got Super Poly'd a couple times recently, especially at the OTS, and I'm glad I had something like Angelica's Angelic Ring in the main deck for that. Although you could argue it being in the side deck maybe would, you know, work just as fine, but sometimes having the ring too will also make it so you don't always need to end on double Charles, because you have the Angelic Ring as a spell negate, and then you have Charles as a spell trap negate, right? They're kind of like one and the same, so you can kind of like bring up your Charles and either link it into SP Little Knight, or you can make something like Baron de Fleur, which is just, you know, kind of diversifying what your end board is able to stop. 1 Rhoda, a card that definitely needs no explanation. 1 original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye. Yeah, love that card. Hard drawing it is also fine most of the time. And I also learned recently that this is the card that you want to leave in your graveyard to search that level 1. A lot of the times I was so used to just using this to put this back and draw 1. But sometimes I think leaving this card in the grave to search a level 1 fire is probably just better practice. Then we have some more equips here to round off the engine. We have 1 Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, 1 DDR, and 1 Angelica's Angelic Ring. Yeah, don't want to change these. If anything, it'd be this for a Joyous, but these 3 cards, at least these 2, are non-replaceable at the moment. And this card is the only thing that is kind of like borderline. Maybe you could cut for Joyous, but that's the only other equip spell that I would replace it for. I just wish there was easier combos in time, and maybe there is, I just don't know them. Easier combos in time to use that gain 500 effect. And the thing that's risky about that too is that you cannot use Museum when time is ticking down, because that's going to drop you down 12, and obviously this only gives you back 500, and that's going to still cost you the game or the match when we're talking about end of match procedures. So I just wish it was easier. I know there's Caliburn, which can be used multiple times in a turn, like at least 3 times in a certain combo to gain 1500, which, you know, gives you that 1200 back and then some. But that sounds a little complicated. But it is easier to activate than this, because this has to only be equipped to something that's already equipped. So I don't know, maybe I need to brush up on those lines. Then we have 3 copies of Fenrir as we move into the non-engine. Although, again, you could argue that Fenrir also serves as engine in the fact that it is able to grab us a level 4 Fire Warrior monster in that of Riseheart. Then we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. Was I happy that I mained this card? I would say so. I definitely didn't mind having it in the main deck. Pearly is definitely a tough deck, and having this for that particular matchup is nice. But maybe having Valor in the main deck might be better going forward. I don't know. Time will tell. But for now, I haven't had any complaints with Droll and Lockbird. Then we have 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. God card, non-engine. Yeah, definitely wouldn't want to change that either. So that is it for the main deck. That's 44 cards. Now we'll go into the extra deck real quick, where we have 1 copy of Battling Boxer King Dempsey. Crucial card in the extra deck. Go into this card a lot, whether it's the Isola combo, like where you go send 4, summon out the Ogier, dump Turpin, equip, go into Dempsey, or there's some other lines where you start Dempsey into the Fire Flint Lady, then into Assault, kind of load your graveyard up for Divine Sword plays. You know, there's so many lines in this deck that you can take, and this card is crucial for a couple of them, so you definitely want to play it. Would never play the Artorigus again, that's for sure. Some Synchros, Angelica, didn't miss a second one. One was always fine. I do play 2 Roland. I love playing 2 Roland. You don't have to play 2. I know a lot of people probably don't play 2, but I do enjoy playing 2 Roland. The second one does come up quite a bit for me with how I play the deck. Then we have the 1 Charles Synchro. Completely fine with it. Ever since Cashier dropped off the face of the earth, you don't really need to worry about a second one. Although sometimes, I will admit, not having a second one to go into if you don't use both your Charles links kind of sucks, but if you do play smart, you can DDR this back out by banishing off Divine Sword, which is something I've done a good handful of times, and it's very satisfying to do. 1 Baron to Fleur, just because it's Baron. Then we have 1 copy of Link Spider and 1 copy of Relinquished Anima. I summoned these cards very, very little. I think, if anything, I've summoned the Link Spider a couple times to play past Nibiru and use the original Sinful Spoils to send this off. The Anima really hasn't come up that much. Maybe 1 time. There is a part of me that wishes these were like a little bit more useful, like Unicorn and Access Code. I really like playing those cards because it was just a quick and easy way to game. You know, turn 3, if you're bored, didn't quite get the job done. So, but I understand the importance of these cards. Being able to go into SP Little Knight and use that effect on summon. You know, sometimes you need a level 1 to be turned into an extra deck monster, right, to be able to get that effect. And we do play a lot of level 1s. You know, Flint Lady, Renault, Ricky Ardetto, or even things like Droll and Lockbird, so they're all level 1s, so I do see their value there. Then we play 2 copies of the Emperor Charles the Great, because you need to. You summon 2 quite a bit. 2 copies of Isolde, 2 Tales of the Noble Knights, 2 copies of SP Little Knight. Shout out to my friend Dan for letting me borrow a second copy at the OTS. I only played 1 at the local that I got second at. But I did actually miss the second copy. The second copy did come up a lot and then it didn't come up at all in the rounds that I played at the OTS, which is kind of funny how that works, but I definitely would recommend playing 2. At first, I didn't think you needed to, but if you've got the extra cash and you want to buy a second one of these things, then I would say by all means go for it. But you could probably get away with playing just one, playing like a Unicorn access code or a Zeus maybe, or Typhon. So yeah, those are other options. And then last but not least, one Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess. This card, I didn't summon a single time at the OTS, and I can't recall if I summoned it at all during the locals, but no, I think I did actually. I think I summoned it one time at the locals. But yeah, pivotal card, you got to have it in the extra deck for those lines to be able to beat Nibiru, or just, you know, put up an Appaloosa, because sometimes it just auto wins the game against certain decks. Side deck here, this is one thing I might change going forward as the side deck, as the format evolves with the you know, like the Centurion stuff. I don't know how popular that's going to be, but I think like Druid Swarm is very, very good against that deck. Book of Eclipse is very, very good against that deck. I don't want to get Calamity locked. So 3 Nib, 3 DD Crow, covers the Unchained and Pearly matchups. D-Shifter, this is just for cross out, and call by. I don't really like playing cross out and call by, you know, like in the deck, you know, for just putting in going first, but it is nice, I gotta say. Like, going first, your opponent's probably putting in hand traps or board breakers, and usually board breakers you can deal with Angelica's Ring. So it's usually just the hand traps that you can't deal with after the fact, and like being able to like guarantee that your combos go through is definitely second to none, because if you can put up your board with Angelica's Ring, you're pretty much set from anything that your opponent is going to be able to throw at you. So this accounts for that, you know, normally unaccountable for variable, I guess. And the other thing too is, like, if your hand can't beat, like, you know, Imperm normally, like cross out can beat it for you, and then if they have Nib on top of that, right, like your combos usually can just beat Nib sometimes outright, or beat an Ash or whatever it may be, or Connector's dealing with the other hand trap that cross out or call by isn't dealing with. So yeah, that's really about it with that stuff there. Then we have 2 Cosmic, which this was actually Lightning Storm, but literally at the OTS before 4 deck lists were collected, me and a couple friends decided it might be better to change our deck list so that instead of playing Lightning Storm, we were playing 2 Cosmic instead for the Centurion stuff, because a lot of those cards say Centurion cards cannot be destroyed by card effect, and the field spell says that as well, and the field spell is insane, so we wanted to put Cosmic in instead, so we'd have a little bit less of a hard time in that matchup. I never played against it, but in theory this would have been for that. 1 Duster just for back row removal, and the 1 Yeep, taking a page out of Pack's book here with this. Never played against Pearly, but I was definitely strapped and ready for that particular matchup to be able to cross out on the Yeep. So yeah, that is it for the deck profile, main side and extra. Now we're going to do a quick little tournament report for you guys here, and then after that we're going to wrap the video up. Okay, so really quickly for the locals tournament report, round 1 I played against Labyrinth. I lost that 2-0 because game 1 took like 35 minutes or something absurd, and just time was called in the middle of game 2, and I couldn't get to Angelica's Ring on field to gain life points. I don't think I had a way to do that either, especially since my opponent had Nib. Yeah, really couldn't do anything about that, so just an unfortunate loss. Round 2 I had the bye. Round 3 I played against Dragon Link, won that 2-1. Round 4 I played against my friend Adam in the mirror match. I won that 2-1, only because he did make some misplays in game 3. And despite getting D-shifted in the mirror game 2, I was able to come back and win that game. Felt very satisfying. But like I said, my friend misplayed a little bit. He's still learning the decks, still learning combos. Yeah, definitely improved after that match for sure. Then moving into Top Cut, I played against the same Labyrinth player in Top 8, which I believe is a feature match, and ended up winning that 2-1, so got revenge there. It was a pretty good match. And then Top 4, I played against Fluanda Rees, won that 2-0. And then in the finals, I lost to Rescue Ace 2-0. Definitely should have won game 1. My end board game 1, I think after some interruption, was just SP Fenrir. And I didn't Fenrir his Fire Hydrant on the resolution of its effect, which was a big mistake. I just essentially held all my interruptions for the next game and lost because of it. So yeah, definitely won't be making that mistake again against Rescue Ace, and I just lost the next game. due to a weak hand and my opponent literally having a ton of hand traps. After playing through a couple hand traps, he had Nib on top of that, and just didn't have enough resources to keep doing anything after the fact. And then he just set up next turn, and that was pretty much a wrap. And then for the OTS Championship, round 1, I actually played against Logan from Crush Cards. She did not open up super well game 1, and she also lost a die roll, so I ended up winning that match 2-0. And then round 2, I played against another Rescue Ace deck. Really cool player, really cool opponent. Shoutouts to that guy. I don't remember his name. He said he was a fan of the channel. So if you're watching, good match. I was looking for a little bit of redemption in the Rescue Ace matchup as well after how terribly that Rescue Ace final went the night before. We had a great match, like I said. I lost game 1. Game 2, I went first. Still won through Super Poly. He had 2 spells to bait out before throwing the Super Poly to suck up, I think it was like Baron and the Charles Link. Charles Link negated the first spell, Angelica's Ring negated the second spell, and then he had the Super Poly on top of that. But I was still able to basically just go for game next turn because I had enough resources and he didn't have enough to put up a board after the fact of cracking my own. And then game 3 was super impressive on my part. He set up the full board, and I was able to break the entire thing and set up Blue Chew Chuck, aka Charles Link, and Baron through all of that, and pretty much had the full stop for him on the next turn, and that was the match. And then round 3, I was actually on the feature match at the OTS, so I played against Unchained. Lost that match fair and square. I don't think I really made I definitely misplayed. I don't want to say I didn't make any, but I definitely made some questionable decisions watching that feature match back. I banished the wrong things with Gearfried a couple times. Should have banished other things. Could have played things a lot differently, especially in game 2, which I it was game 1, which I slowly kind of bled out on. Definitely should have won that game. That top deck Wanted I had, it just completely went to waste because I was just banishing the wrong things with Gearfried. If I would have left Divine Sword Engrave, I think would have been a much better position. But huge misplay on my end there. And then for the 4th round of the OTS, I ended up playing against Branded Despia, and I ended up losing that match 2-1. They went first, and I got Gimmick Puppet locked of all things. Didn't draw any hand traps. So needless to say, I lost that one. And then game 2, I went first, full combo, plus I think I had double Ash in hand, so needless to say I won that one. And then going to game 3, my opponent actually bricked. Their hand, I believe, was Brandon Red, Nibiru, Fusion Duplication, Call By, and Super Poly. My hand was something to the effect of Connector, Ogier, Nib, Gearfried, and I cannot remember for the life of me what the last card was. But had I had the foresight to think about playing around Super Poly, I think there was a way for me to win that game because, of course, my opponent ends up top decking Branded Fusion of all things. But I started Connector, Summon Dolphin, discard Ogier, then look at the hand, and I see that he has the Nibiru. So I'm going to go, okay, great, we got to deal with this now. So I link into a Sold adds Red Layer. Then we go ahead, and I think I tried to use Ogier Effect Engrave to equip so I could get the Gearfried on field. But he called by the Ogier, which was a little interesting, but I was like, all right, fair enough. And then from there, I go with Sold Effect, send 1. It was DDR, so I could summon Renault to add it back to summon out the Ogier. I don't know why I did that, because the Renault wasn't going to be treated as a tuner anyways. So I should have just, sent Almace, summon Renault, Almace gets added back. And then I go into Almace, equip onto Renault, grab the Durendal, and then try to summon the Gearfried there. At that point, they're forced to use the Nib. And I don't play into Super Poly either. So I can just go Battle Phase, attack, and take the Nib and equip it to the Gearfried. And at that point, it's now he has top deck Branded Fusion, but he's also got to deal with the Gearfried on top of that. Trying to play through the Gearfried negate on the Albion or Lubellion, I think maybe would have just sealed it right there. But again, that would have been requiring me thinking about trying to play around Super Poly. And to be honest, I don't really know why I even sent DDR to bring back the Ogier, because again, it was already negated because of call by, and Renault was not a tuner at that point either, because it wasn't summoned from the hand. So it's not like I had an Angelica play there anyways. I just wasn't thinking, I guess, which is pretty standard practice for me sometimes. But yeah, I know probably nobody watched the tournament reports, but if you did, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the support. I will be doing a combo video next, and then maybe a test hand video as well, because I like doing both. I think there's value in both. So yeah, as always, Winter Kill signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. And like always, I'd like to give a special thank you to our current Divine level channel members, who are Pony Star Cadillacs, Green, Misfit, and HCH Cyber. Thank you guys so much as always for your extremely kind and very, very generous support of the channel.